So I will be sharing with you one of my favorite hobbies today, and that is cooking. I really love to cook. If you follow me on Instagram at President Sarah, you will see that I make a lot of my own meals, and I love making meals and spending time making meals and taking pictures of them and putting on them on Instagram. And people seem to enjoy it, so I'm going to keep doing it. But since people like that, I thought that you might like to see a video of me making one of my favorite meals. So today I'm going to be making a Korean ground beef rice bowl, and this is based on a recipe from Skinny Taste. It's a little tweaked here and there. So I actually cook almost all of the meals that I eat, and part of that is that I really enjoy doing it, but the other part of that is I have an immune disorder and I have a reaction to soy. So as you know, there's a lot of hidden soy in a lot of prepared foods. So I have to make a lot of my own meals because I don't want to end up in bed for 3 days. And the book I'm writing right now is about a girl in high school, and she actually does most of the cooking for her family, but that's more of a necessity, though she does enjoy it. So it's kind of like me in that she kind of has to do it, but she also really enjoys doing it, so it's lucky that way. So we're gonna go ahead and go into the kitchen and get cooking. I've already done some of the prep work because I didn't think you want to see me like chopping vegetables for like an hour because I'm pretty slow at cutting. And so a lot of that prep work is already done. It's just gonna be the cooking part of it. So I'll see you in the kitchen. We'll go ahead and get started. I need to make the sauce. This is my kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. It's definitely a one-person kitchen. This is literally the extent of it. There's nothing behind the camera except a wall. So let's see. Alright, so I do use measuring cups, and that's just because I have very little ability to like tell how much of something is in a bowl if I don't measure it. So I just added a 1/4 cup of soy sauce, and now I'm adding brown sugar, and then we're gonna add sesame oil. Okay. This is one of the things that is vital in Florida. In Florida we have a lot of bugs, especially in older places like this. And so pretty much everything I own is in like a sealable plastic container. Okay, we're gonna add some sesame oil. Sesame oil is like really one of those things that you just can't substitute the flavor. There's nothing that tastes anything like it. So if you have a recipe that calls for sesame oil, definitely get it because it's worth it. Oh, so here's one of the substitutes that I'm doing. Is it calls for red pepper flakes. I don't really like red pepper flakes. I don't like the texture of them, so I'm just using a powdered red pepper instead. And I don't measure that, I kind of eyeball that. I'm kind of a minimalist, and part of it, I mean, it's gotten even more so since I moved here because this kitchen is very small, but just in general, so I don't have a lot of like single purpose things. So as you see, I'm using a coffee mug to mix my sauce in because there's no reason why a coffee mug can't be used for sauce, right? Marion gave me this for my birthday. I love this cup. Alright, so we're gonna, I should have had that on before we started. I am gonna start the rice here. Oh, this is cool. So this is what I use for my salt cellar. So it's like a mini tagine from Morocco. Just got salt inside of it. That's one of the few things I actually have on my counter all the time. Because you can just like pinch a little bit of salt your water. You're ready to go. Alright. Now it's important ingredient time. I love to drink wine when I cook. I don't know why, I just do. I actually usually listen to podcasts when I cook as well. Right now I'm listening to Print Run podcast, which is a podcast by 2 litter agents, Laura Zatz and Eric Kane. And I didn't listen to it originally because I thought it was for Korean writers, but it turns out they talk a lot about the publishing industry, news that's happening in the publishing industry, so I'm really enjoying it. I listened all the way through Welcome to Night Vale. That was fun. And I listened all the way through Hidden Brain, which was one of my favorite podcasts from NPR about the hidden biases that we have. While that's heating up, I'm going to talk to you about a couple substitutions that I'm making. So one of them is the recipe calls for diced onions. And so one of the things that I have been doing recently is when a recipe calls for diced onions, I use frozen onions. As long as you're going to be cooking them down. Like if I wouldn't do it in like a salsa or salad or anything like that, but if you're going to be cooking the onions down, I don't think there's any harm in replacing it with frozen onions, and it reduces your prep time. And also I cry when I cut onions, so I don't have to do that. This is another thing that I've been doing sometimes, in same instance, when you're cooking something down, not necessarily, like, you definitely don't want to do this if you want fresh garlic, but these little frozen things from Trader Joe's just cut down a lot of that prep time, because, like, get that in focus. There we go. So garlic is notoriously hard to peel and also kind of annoying to cut, and then everything smells like it for like 2 days. So they come in these little things, and each thing is a clove, so you can just pop them out like you would an ice cube. And I use that, again, only when I'm going to be cooking down the garlic, because you don't really need that fresh flavor as much. So this is a really cool container that I love so much. So you'll see there's 2 different compartments here. And the reason why is when you tilt this over, it will pour out exactly half a cup of rice. So I never have to measure my rice, because I'm almost always making it in half-cup increments. I'm going to go ahead and pour in a cup of rice here. So I used to have a rice cooker, and I use that all the time to make my rice, and that's a product of growing up on Guam. Anyone who's spent time in Guam probably owns a rice cooker. And I recently got rid of it because I got Instapot, and so I replaced my crock pot and my rice cooker with an Instapot, but I don't really like making the rice in the Instapot because it's kind of a hassle to like bring everything out. So I end up making in a pan more often than not, unless I'm just making a big batch. So that didn't work out so well, but a pan works fine, right? Yeah, you do have to watch it a little bit closer than a rice cooker, I think, but that's not bad. So I have an immune disorder, and I have a reaction to soy. It causes a lot of inflammation in my body, and this actually goes for all legumes. I have a soy and legume inflammation reaction, and I have psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. So basically what happens if I eat soy or beans, my entire body hurts, and I get migraines, and my stomach gets upset. And I also get pretty bad brain fog. And I used to be not a vegetarian, but like almost a vegetarian. Like I didn't eat hardly any meat because I just don't like eating it that much. The main thing is I don't like thinking that what I'm eating came from an animal, and it grosses me out. But so I was eating a lot of beans, and I think that's why my immune system got so bad. And so when I did the elimination diet and discovered that I couldn't eat soy or legumes anymore, that was a big blow to my normal eating habits. And so I started, I'll let that cook a little bit. I started getting pasture raised meat. And I get mine from a company called Butcher Box. Okay, right now I'm just browning the beef. I like to stir pretty constantly because I like my Korean ground beef to have like really tiny pieces. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just me or if maybe it tastes better because you get the flavoring, a higher like flavoring to meat ratio. I don't know. But I just kind of constantly do this. So we're probably going to skip this part until the meat is browned, just because you're just going to hear that a lot, and that's annoying. So, see you in a couple minutes. Alright, so I have browned the ground beef and crumbled it up. I also turned on an extra light in here. It's a little dark in my kitchen. So now we're gonna add the onions, and I also have the white parts of the green onion that I'm gonna put on as a topping in there, just because you don't use it otherwise, and why not? It just adds a little bit extra flavor. Okay, so now for the garlic. So it's 2 cloves of garlic. So I'm just gonna pop out 2 of these little squares, like I said, just like ice cubes. And I just kind of get those down to the pan so they can melt really quickly. So it's basically just pureed garlic. Yeah. And then the other thing we're going to do is add some ginger. Now, this recipe calls for fresh ginger. I actually have a slight ginger allergy, maybe. I'm not sure. It makes me sick to my stomach. Ginger and turmeric and cardamom. They all make me a little nauseous or nauseated. So, but the fresh is way worse. So I can use a little bit of ground ginger, and I do like the flavor. But as long as I use just a little bit of ground ginger, then I don't get nauseated at all. But it's funny because that's like the opposite thing that ginger and turmeric are supposed to do. They're supposed to calm your stomach, but not for me. So we're just gonna let that simmer for 1 minute, not very long. Now we're gonna add the sauce. So I realized I said that I had an immune response to soy, and then I went ahead and added all the soy sauce to my meal, and I didn't explain. So I don't have a reaction to soy sauce. I'm not really sure why, but there's some research that suggests that the fermentation process denatures the proteins in the soy, and so a lot of people who have problems with soy don't have problems with soy sauce. And there's also some research that their polysaccharides in soy sauce actually reduce inflammation, so maybe, I don't know, it balances each other out. I don't know, but I've never had any problem with soy sauce, which luckily, because I eat a lot of it. So we're just gonna let that simmer for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna clean up the kitchen, and I'll see you when it's almost ready. So everything's almost ready. I'm gonna move the camera so you can see me prepare the plate. But I did want to point out that the Skinny Taste recipe calls for gochujang sauce, which I'm sure would be lovely on this, but I went to 2 different stores today and they didn't have it, and it was pouring down rain, so I wasn't gonna go to more. So I just made a kind of sad substitute. I'm sure it'll still be good, with some sriracha and then hoisin sauce. For the sweetness, I added hoisin sauce for the sweetness. And also it's got miso in there, so it might give some of that like umami flavor. So I just mixed it up in my little bottle here that I mix sauces in. And so hopefully that is good. Alright, so we are going to start by putting some jasmine rice on the plate. I like to break it up so we get a nice even distribution on the plate. I also like, sometimes if I'm being fancy, I'll use like one of the measuring cups to make it into a dome shape, and then put all the other ingredients around it. So now we're gonna add the beef, which smells so good, by the way, guys. I wish I could help you smell this because it is delicious. And I'm trying to scoop up some of the sauce so we get a little bit extra sauce to coat the rice. Okay, and then add some cucumbers. So this is kind of like a bibimbap almost, but with simpler ingredients, I would say. I cut those cucumbers earlier with one of my favorite kitchen tools. I don't have a lot of single-use kitchen tools, but this is one of my favorite. It is a handheld mandolin slicer. If you don't have one, I have a lot of trouble like making really even thin slices, so I just use this for so many things, and I use this to cut the cucumbers earlier. Now this recipe didn't call for carrots, but it's something that I like to have on a meal like this, and I had carrots in the fridge, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add those in. They also add, you know, extra serving of vegetables and some nice color on the plate as well. Then I'm gonna add these green onions, and I slice the green onions on kind of an extreme bias. So let's see if we can get the camera to focus. Maybe not. So they're really slanted and thinly sliced. I just kind of go over everything. And like I plate it like this, you know, for Instagram, but whenever I eat it, I just like mix it all together. And now we're gonna add these sesame seeds. These are things that I just kind of have. If you don't have it, like, you don't have to use it, but it makes a nice presentation and it gives you a nice contrast of textures there. And then finally we're gonna add the gochujang not sauce. The gochujang is gonna have a more complex flavor profile, but I think this one will just be just as good. And this is actually a salad container, so kind of gotta be careful when you squirt things out, but I'm ready to eat. So I will see you guys later with my volleyball video, and I'm gonna go eat this. So have a good night. Bye.